A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to uLaw's Friday webinar. Topic for today's session is everything practice management. It's a CPD topic with 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. I'll be sharing the attendance link as well as the topic details towards the end of the webinar today. So I request all of you to stay back until end and use the link and other details. For those who are not able to hear me well, if there's any audio issues, I request you to click on the speaker option on the top and choose the phone so that you'll have the details sent for phone audio. And as you all can see, I'm going to be getting started with the presentation. We have more folks joining in, so I'd like to give them a couple minutes to join in. In the meantime, let me share the link and other information here shortly. Thank you. As I mentioned, I would be sharing the link and attendance link and the topic details once now and once again at the end. So please do not worry if you are joining a little later and you're not able to access the link. I will definitely share it towards the end. Thank you. Please note that it is available for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits and not substantiated. Thank you. The session is being recorded and it will be available on our YouTube platform as early as Monday. So once you are joining later, you can definitely view it on the YouTube portal to understand today's topic even better. As you all can see here, just going to get started quickly with the topic for today's session, everything practice management. Everything practice management is a wide range of, consists of wide range of subtopics, as you all can see again here in the agenda. We have everything that a legal professional need to oblige for their professionalism and also to maintain their law society rules and guidelines that is respective to each and every province. So today we are discussing about certain professional obligations that you would need to fulfill as a legal professional, either a lawyer or a paralegal. They're definitely needing to maintain certain obligations and fulfill them from time to time, not at the beginning, not at the end, but throughout servicing your clients, throughout the time of file management and financial management, business management and professional management, time management and personal management. Now, you might ask me, where does time management and personal management come under the professional obligations? You would definitely see how it works. These form part of keeping yourself compliant with the law society end of the day by maintaining your calendars, by maintaining your court dates, by maintaining your other time for your clients. There's so many things that forms part of keeping yourself law society compliant and obliged for the profession. And one of them is, to start off with, is client intake service and communication. When you take client intake service and communication, it all starts off with a conversation which gets converted into a consultation with your client that would need your expertise knowledge to be provided to the client, which is when you realize there's a need for client intake, that is to record the information of your client, and also make sure that you do the conflict check, you perform the conflict check in order to ensure there is no conflict from the past clients that you've serviced or the present clients that you're servicing, whether you have any conflict with this client or rather this prospective client or not. So conflict checking and also determining whether you'd like to service them through the trust or the general. When I mean the general, either you have the money coming into the trust account or general account. When it comes to the trust account, whether you are going to issue them a retainer letter or not. So all of this is to be decided at the very beginning so that you can draft a retainer letter based on it. Now, while drafting the retainer letter, you are required to consider several things, including whether you're going to charge them a flat rate or a hourly billable rate. All these forms part of obtaining the retainer, servicing the client, issuing an invoice, and then if they're paying upfront, giving them a receipt from trust account, or later on collecting the money into the general account means, again, providing the receipt for the same. Now, all of this happens keeping in mind the Law Society regulations for client intake, service, and communication. Along with it is non-engagement letter when you're not engaging with your client, or rather when you're not engaging further with a prospective client. Law Society says provide them with a non-engagement letter so that they don't come back in the future holding you responsible for what has happened to them, right? So make sure that if there is a smooth process of client intake, well and good, you issue them a client intake form, you intake them, you do the conflict check, you determine the method in which you're going to collect the fee, and once you're done with that, you are going to be able to decide whether you're, issuing them a retainer letter with flat rate or whether a billable time, and also provide them with a receipt. Now, providing letters of non-engagement means that you are not engaging with that client, or rather the prospective client, for some reason. There could be a conflict, or there could be some other reason that you're personally or officially, you're not requiring to take their file. And then you issue them a non-engagement letter. And when you issue them a non-engagement letter, to just maintain a harmonized relationship with the client for the future purposes, you can always refer them to another, co-worker or colleague or a friend of yours who you think would be suitable for this particular file, and refer them to them. So it is I generally call this as a life cycle of intaking a client, starting off with simple client intake. Now, in today's scenario, intaking a client is super simple. There's no more paper pen. There's no more, non-technology-based client intake. Very, very few times you would see that people intaking using paper pen at the office. Right now, today's scenario, nobody meets up. It's all online. You use a client intake portal, or you don't even need to go online onto your website or do stuff. People are sent link using client intake portal, and rather using client portal, send them a client intake form, get them to fill up. In fact, one step ahead with the recent communication that Law Societies laid out starting 1st Jan 2024, you are required to even do the virtual verification of client ID, which is, again, online. There's no more, I wouldn't say there's no more of face-to-face communication or something, but at least in today's scenario, post-COVID era, people have taken virtual life very serious, and that includes Law Society's guidelines, very recent one, that talks about virtual verification for client ID online again. And uLaw has recently implemented the same feature. And if you're all uLaw users, I would encourage you to go on to your uLaw, respective uLaw account and settings and contacts and find out about the virtual verification. But I would highly recommend you to include that as a part of your client intake service and communication. It is also a professional obligation for you to virtually verify your client ID, and that includes into the client intake process. So get your client to sign up, verify their client IDs, or rather verify their IDs, which is either a government or ID issued ID, or one of them has to be definitely facial recognition again. And once all of those done, you can determine the fee structure, you can determine whether you're collecting a retainer or not, all of those, and then issue them with a receipt once the payment has made. And then when all of this is not even happening, straight away issue them a non-engagement letter and keep moving on. So this is what I feel is going to establish a very professional relationship with your client at the very beginning. They always say first impression is the best impression, and nevertheless, that client intake process being one of the first interactions with your client has to be highly professional, so that it is not only for the current file that you're working on, but it goes beyond that. When your service and communication is top-notch, your client could refer you to another friend of theirs. Your client can come back for another file. There can be repetitive jobs in future. There's so many things that works out for good when you go that 1 mile extra for client intake service and communication. So keep in mind all of this when you're preparing a retainer agreement. Don't make it too elaborate. At the same time, don't keep it very short where you have not included the client's responsibilities, or you have not spoken about how would you like to communicate with them, some risks associated with the methods of communications, and then how confidential is this entire matter or file going to be maintained. There's so many things that you need to include in a retainer letter besides just the fee structure, or besides just talking about the nature and scope of matter. So try to keep it precise at the same time, also elaborate in a context that you are including all of these that we have mentioned over here, right from nature and scope to the risks associated with the method of communication that you prefer to have with them. Now, like I said, one of the most important factors that, clients are basically trying to catch the attention is that when you are portraying to them how professional you're trying to maintain the client intake, or even servicing through the entire file or matter, and communicating with them every now and then, sending them the invoices, receipts. If a file is going on for more than a quarter, sending them all the quarterly statements, like a settlement statement or a simple statement of activity. There's so many things that make them feel more secure, that make them feel that they are being professionally addressed to this particular matter that you're handling with them. Now, that is what mostly client intake service and communication is about. So keep in mind that with today's era, everything going virtually on the platform, and people are trying to make the best use of available resources. So make sure that you also try out the virtual ID verification that uLaw has put out. And if you're not a uLaw user, I highly encourage you to sign up and try it out. So you can always take a look at the options available for the client portal using uLaw, as well as the virtual ID verification using uLaw once again. Now, moving on to the next part of professional obligation, or rather fulfilling professional obligation, file management. So once a client has been, just going to take, someone says they're not able to hear anything. I just hope everyone here, they're able to hear me. If anyone is able to confirm on the chat window that you're able to hear me, it would be great. Thank you so much for that. I hope thank you all. Very kind of you. All right, so just quickly moving on to professional obligations for file management. Now again, these are super simple if you are using a program. If you're not and you're manually doing things using Excel spreadsheet, then there's a little task of maintaining certain things when it comes to file organization. Now, if you're using the program as well, keep in mind, a file checklist is to be generated every time you open a file. Now, that file checklist will tell you for every matter that you open, what are certain documents that you would need to collect. What are certain steps that you need to fulfill? Like, for example, have you completed the client intake? Have you collected the client IDs? Have you verified them? Have you, docketed, or rather, which is where you have any joint retainers? Do you have any additional parties, which is where you have client, instead of conflict check, there's something called conflict screening. So all of these forms part of file checklist, and that's number one that you need to probably complete. And then upon completion of certain things under file checklist, you want to make sure the conflict check is done, and then you have a file number that has been assigned for every matter, which is chronologically secured and organized, again electronically, because you're required to maintain at least 7 years of data electronically if you're being audited. And you need to also ensure that all of those files that you're going to be saving have their respective file numbers. And even if it's the same client who has two different files, both of them are having different file numbers. So they have their own respective file numbers. And you also have a, place where you record all the conversations with your client, which is what mostly it is called as docketing. So docketing goes under file management. You record each and every interaction and communication with the client over there. And then you also have proper organization, where you have all of those files being cross-indexed. Now, just having a file number is different, but having it cross-indexed through, an alphanumeric file number is quite different too. It is required because end of the day, you don't mess up between the files, and each file number is unique, and they are not serial, they don't run serially, they don't have serial numbers. They have completely unique in accordance to law society, so that it doesn't get overlapped for any reason with another file. Now, when you are at your file management level, you're ensuring all of these basic things happen. That is when you open you move on to the financial part, because obviously you need to have the file in order so that you can start working on the finances. You'll be able to collect the money. You will be able to deposit them into the trust or general respectively once the work is done. And then you will be able to add on all the information into the respective bank accounts and your books matching to each other. And this is when you will be able to raise invoices because the dockets are in now. You can raise invoice, send it to your client, request them to either make payment into general account or let them know if there is money lying in the trust account. You're going to move that from trust to the general and make it yours. Now, there's also proper fee scheduling. For every hour, you have all the billable time that is entered in the dockets that needs to go into the timesheets, as well as other client files and accounting systems. Now, once the billing is done, it is very important that before you make the trust transfer or before you request the money into the general account, you will need to deliver the invoice to the client before even transferring the money into the general or collecting the payment into the general. So prompt transmission and delivery of invoice to the client is highly important, because without showing them that this is the work that was completed and this is what you need to pay us, and there's nothing more than that, that takes place at that point of time where your client should be aware of what has happened in their trust account or what is to be done to their file. Do they owe some money, or do they have any refund? Everything to be clearly jotted down on that invoice. Again, now if you're using a software, the software does all of this. You just need to generate the invoice, and at the back end, it calculates all of this for you. Alongside with that, tracking any overpayments. Now, this is a very common mistake that we all tend to do. Tracking any overpayments. If you have any money into the trust account, when you raise an invoice for it, partial or fully is being transferred from trust to the general, and anything about any pending, any outstanding from the client is then later on gotten into the general account. Now, in this scenario, there are times where people tend to over transfer money from trust to the general, or under transfer, or get overpaid into the general account, which is where whenever there's an underpayment, there's never a problem. You are going to either transfer the excess funds, or you're going to ask your client to send additional or outstanding money into the general account. But when there is any overpayment into the general, either from the trust or by the client directly into the general, that is when you will need to be super careful. You either need to refund them that additional amount and record that in your books as well, or you will need to raise an invoice if it is genuinely the money that you would need to receive. You will raise an additional amount, the differential amount to be raised as an invoice, and then you accept the payment into the general or trust. Into the general, either it's from the trust or from the client. Now, one other point to note here is that when and how can you avoid overpayments into respective bank accounts? Try and match your books with the bank every now and then, at least once or twice a week. That will allow you to maintain your books to the exact date and amount. That will enable you to track down any underpayments or overpayments by the client. While that is being done, which is another method, is to go through all of those receipts and disbursements and record them into your books of accounts, which is where data entry plays a role, and maintaining all of the bank statements, any checks being canceled, any duplicate receipts, everything from time to time entered in there. Last but not the least, This is not a major law society requirement, but this is something to gauge your own firm's health. To understand where you stand, you will have to prepare financial statements from time to time. Preparing financial statements includes income and expense statement, profit and loss, trial balance, balance sheet. All of these shows you the real picture of your firm's health, how much you're doing good, and what needs to be done further. All of them are recorded under the financial management purposes. Now, under the financial management, other than just the ledgers, other than just the statements that we discussed here, which is the invoices or the receipts or the statements, there's a little bit more, which is what is called as journals, ledgers, reconciliation documents. All of these are law society requirements, which is done from month to month. Month on month, you're required to reconcile your books and generate journals and ledgers. Again, if you're doing it manually, you are having to maintain on the Excel spreadsheet every time a client pays you in, you enter them. Every time a client pays out, you enter it again. Then you need to do your own additions and subtractions. Of course, the Excel spreadsheet has formulas, but end of the day, it's nothing like a legal practice management software that does for you, where you only enter the amounts and we do the back-end work for you and provide something called as ledgers. When it comes to ledgers, it shows you dual activities under the same ledger. So there's either a receipt or a payment ledger. So whenever you see journals, it shows a single type of activity where there's a trust receipt journal, trust disbursement journal, general receipt journal, and general disbursement journal. So depending upon the receipt or disbursement or trust or general, the journals are formed and submitted to Law Society for further approval. And over here, under receipt journal, all the money that is come into your trust or general respectively is recorded. And under the disbursement journal, all the money that has come into the trust or general again is recorded. Now, what does the trust reconciliation do? Again, it shows all the activities from day 1 of that month till day 30 of that month or day 31 of that month. And you're having to reconcile by matching it exactly with your bank statement. If there's any errors, you record the errors, and then you reconcile the bank statements. You reconcile the books alongside with your bank statement. So that is about the file management and financial management. Before I move on to the business management, I'd like to quickly enter on the chat window once again the attendance link and topic for today's session. For the ones who joined a little later than we started, here's the attendance link and the topic for today's session. So far, we've seen client intake, service communication, file management, and financial management. Looking at the business management. Now, we all know that managing a business is not an easy task, especially when you're a sole proprietor. When you're a sole proprietor, your focus has to be on several areas, not just one. And one of them is definitely having a great software, an efficient software. When I mean a great or an efficient, it is something that reduces your time on practice management for maintaining the books of accounts or maintaining your client ledgers or client related matters or files than doing the actual legal work, right? So end of the day, all legal professionals are required to render more of legal services than, getting stuck day in, day out with doing your own books or doing your own, maintaining your own practice. So to keep life simple, go for a software that would enable you to do all of this on your own. And when, the max you would need is a bookkeeper to help you out for maintaining your reconciliations. Keep in mind, an efficient software is highly important for a business management or for a better business management. And securing the backups, rather, maintaining the file from every time to time. Now, if you're all using on a cloud-based software, you don't have to worry because the service provider would have a backup every now and then, and they can always provide you with one, and they can also help you on how to extract data. But if you're doing some things manually, remember you'll have to securely back up the data every now and then. And also using mobile devices, having them secured, having passwords on mobile devices, securely using them with all of those, and remotely able to access them. Very important, because in today's scenario, one day you're able to go into your office, one day you're not able to go into your office, but you should be able to manage the files remotely and use them all remotely. So remote access, again, very important for a better business management. A good software, high security with robust security for mobile devices and remote access of all of these, again, very important for your better business management. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is talking about the time management and the calendar management. Now, today again, we all have our own calendars as well as the business calendar. When it comes to calendar, nobody has a separate calendar, one for their work, one for their personal stuff. Today, everything is synced. If you're, again, using a software that allows you to synchronize your personal calendar with your official calendar, nothing like that. So that you have a wholesome picture of your entire day schedule or week schedule or month schedule all into one particular calendar. That will give you a daily, weekly, and monthly agenda view, and that will enable you to add in all of those matter that gets docketed into the calendars. So when I say calendars, it is also your personal calendar and official calendar both put together. So some of them tend to, merge both for better business management perspective too. And when you get a monthly, weekly, daily view, you know exactly how the day is panning out to be, or your week or month exactly, and you can plan accordingly. May it be attending a CPD with us, or may it be planning, maybe a send-off for your colleague or whatever. So it's very important to sync your personal calendars with your official calendars, so you have a whole picture of what it looks like from your daily perspective or weekly perspective. At the same time, when you're using the program to manage your file better, it is important that you're able to organize your files and all of those phone and meeting dockets to be added from time to time. Now, if you're again using a mobile app or a phone app, you're able to add in all of those within no time, because the mobile app allows you to do docketing upon completing the phone call. Of course, you're using the app to make the phone call. And then it prompts you. There's so many things that you can explore into it. Alongside with that, Matter Analytics talks about understanding the math behind each and every file or matter when it comes to operating a client's file. You know that for a fact the matter status needs to be updated every time to time, whether it is active file, inactive file, closed file, whatever it is has to be entered from time to time, or rather updated from time to time. Upon updating the matter status, you get to add in all of those in your reports that gets sent to the client later on, whether it is statement of activity or whether it is settlement statement. Even your invoice would carry details of Matter Analytics, and that will help your client to understand about the invoices or pending trust transfers, whether there are any other outstanding amount to be paid to the lawyer or paralegal. So Matter Analytics is not just for your internal purposes, but also for external purposes to be given to the client. It helps you to understand the overall picture, especially as a sole practitioner. You're able to understand all of those data that is being entered and analyzed. And it takes you to the next level, and you'll be able to understand the whole knowledge of the firm. When it comes to managing your practice's finances, you definitely need to consider for a seamless integrated accounting software that will enable you to, just make the data entry. But end of the day, the program helps you to do the reconciliations or further with regards to, reconciling, as well as keeping yourself compliant with Law Society. There are also other analytical tools and reports that you will need to produce from time to time as part of, your regular accounting or servicing the clients. It is very important for you to also generate these documents from time to time and save them into the respective folders. We've already seen the financial management part, so I'm going to just take this time to show you all how it looks at the uLaw end, and that will help you to, understand all of these file management done under uLaw. Let me quickly show you over here under my uLaw account. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen for 1 second to show you all how easily you could download all of these documents that we discussed so far on everything practice management when you're using uLaw. Okay, give me one moment while I share the screen to all of you. There you go. Now we are all in we're all currently viewing my uLaw platform. I would start off with client intake, service, and communication. Now, when you go into contacts, there are several ways you can do a client intake, service, and communication. Like I already mentioned, number one, to use a paper pen method. Very rare these days because you get to very rarely meet people in your office considering things are going virtual. Let's say virtually you'd like to connect with them. The second option is to download a client intake form and send it to them and ask them to do it for you. Okay, this is something you're not doing. What is the next step? Maybe you would want to send them, a client intake link using client portal and ask them to fill things at their end and send it to you. That is the third option. Now, to enable this third option, you go under settings, you go under contacts, go to the very bottom, you would see a couple of things. One is client intake, another one is virtual client ID verification. I'll come to virtual client ID verification next, but client intake, I'm using uLaw client portal. So I have subscribed myself to it as I'm highlighting here. And I've provided with a secret key too. Once I hit save button, I'm going to go back into contacts, click on client portal, enter the client's email ID. Let's say the client's email ID over here. You're going to be entering them. And okay, going to pretend by giving my own email so I can show you all how it looks when I get an email to myself. So you're going to email client and yourself a copy of the link. Generate the link. Very good. And then your client will receive an email similar to this. The moment they receive an email, obviously they're going to click on start here and start entering the information. Okay, let's say client's details are entered by the client themselves at their end. So much time being saved. Imagine you trying to do all of this yourself. It's a lot of work. So this time can be saved and put into your actual legal work instead of intaking a client manually. Any additional information about the matter? Maybe you got a traffic ticket or red light camera, whatever. You just enter, your client would just be recommended to enter such things over here, and they will give further details. And let's see. Upon completing the form and submitting, your client gets a screen like this in front of them. And you would, in turn, get an email from uLaw saying that you have a new client and here's their information. And you know what? Go back into uLaw and just simply refresh the screen by clicking on contacts, and then you will be able to see this single contact in there. This is part of the client intake, service, and communication that we first saw. Before we go into the file management, let me quickly include settings, virtual client ID verification under uLaw. Say yes to Face ID verification, save it, go back into contacts. So for this particular contact, let's say I'd like to initiate the virtual client verification. Oh, always look at the rate card. Make sure that things are okay for you. Maybe I want to verify the driver's license. It's $11 plus taxes. Maybe SIM validation and other things too are available. So now upon viewing that, you are probably initiating a facial recognition. Also the SIM validation. Okay, the search has been successful. Now once that's done, when you come back into this particular matter, let's say if it was actually done, then you can verify the status as to awaiting consent or waiting on candidate. And if they have taken action, and then if the real virtual verification is done, then you would want to getting yourself, it'll show the actual status, whether it's a failure or whether it was completed. Moving on, so that I just wanted to include that little part here about the virtual verification, and I'm not going to go too much in detail about that because you all can take a look at it from settings. There's a nice video out on our YouTube channel. You can check that out. Worst case, which we are really very happy about, is to reach out to support on support@ulawpractice.com, where we would schedule a session for you and we would set up virtual verification for you with the program. Now, quickly moving on to creating a file. Go into matter, enter on the matter title, and then provincial offenses, any code file numbers, matter description, maybe your hourly rate being entered here, your assistant hourly rate, and then save it. Now, as part of matter management or file management, let's say all the conversations being recorded here. So any correspondences, any other work, everything being recorded with either billable time or flat rate. Okay, and save it. Now, important thing before even you get started off with docketing is that you click on compliance and download all of those required compliance. Remember we spoke about the file opening checklist. You can download that first and ensure everything that you need has been addressed. Let's say you're done with client intake and virtual ID verification. Now you're downloading a retainer letter of your own. Okay. So once you have that, you can know whether it's a flat rate or all of those is going to be done over here. Okay, then you go back in there, add in the retainer. Important thing again here is when you collect a retainer from a client, two things: issue them a receipt, and before that, make sure all of those fields are completely entered than leaving them incomplete. Okay, so when you download, you issue them with a receipt. When you go back, that's how it looks with all of the information of your client. So when you go back in there, you can get started off with invoicing the client, issuing them the invoice. One of the most important things is that when you issue an invoice, you can transfer the money from Trustee General or get the money directly into the general account. Without raising an invoice, you cannot do the same, so that, you're compliant with Law Society to get approval from your client for the same. Okay. Now, once you transfer the money, one of the other important things to note here as part of matter management is that you are able to generate a Form 9A for every electronic fund transfer that you make from Trustee General. Transfer. Okay. Just download the form. Again, this is available with finger click. Literally, if you have all the information inputted earlier, which is your banking details, and adding the electronic fund transfer number. Now, the other part here to note that in a file to be completed is that the client owes you some money. Let's say this is what they owe you, and if you try to add even 20 cents or 75 cents more than that, uLaw will not allow you to do that mistake because it is a violation. This is what we spoke about when we were talking about the file management, which is overpayment, right? So you don't want to get any overpayment here. In that case, then you will have to transfer 75 cents to the client later on for the overpayment, or you raise an invoice for the 75 cents that you have received from the client for either any services rendered or as disbursements, if it's genuinely occurred, right? So now you can add in the information and again, issue them with a receipt. Okay, download the payment receipt. Okay, then when it comes to accounting, now these are some things that we spoke about file management. Everything else is available. If there's a file that is going on for a while, for more than a quarter especially, you're required to enter all of those information for that specific quarter. You need to render it to the client, give them the statement of activity or settlement statement or trust plus general ledger. They need to be updated from time to time as to what is happening in the file, even in the perspective of file management. And when it comes to accounts, please remember that you need to do the reconciliation every month on month. So again, if you're using the program, it allows you to do the reconciliation with finger click only. If you are again entering the data from time to time and it matches with the bank, you're able to do the reconciliation. Otherwise, you will need to make the rectification of any errors made, and you will have to complete the trust or general reconciliation. Now, besides that, let's say you go into the compliances. You also have other monthly compliances to be fulfilled. Everything which includes the trust ledger and the general ledger we spoke about, and it is available there from time to time for every month or every week or for the respective period. Let's look at the client's trust ledger for what we did today. This includes, for this matter, that the money was gotten in as receipt, the money was sent out. So the purpose behind downloading these documents is that, one, you get to see what is happening in the client's file. Two, you can also share it with your client saying this is what has happened so far. Three, you also keep them for your records. If you're being audited, your auditor could always ask you as to pick random file and ask you to show what has happened in that file. And these trust ledgers and general ledgers or journals, they form part of, compliances, and they're so helpful for you to show to the auditor as to what has exactly happened in the file. Let's assume that, all of this is done for the compliance sake. Now you go into the document generation under accounts, and whatever we discuss about the financial management is readily available here for you, which is the trial balance, balance sheet, profit and loss, expense and income statement, and more. Last but not the least, we spoke about the calendar, maintaining and syncing the calendar. Again, in uLaw, we synchronize with Google Calendars. You can just click on the little drop-down button in there and sign in with Google, sync your calendar. Then you'll have both your personal calendar and your work calendar synchronized. You can use it for Scratchpad to save time, add as many rows as you want, and do all of your work at the same time. Now let's see that it's getting stuck. For one of these matters that we're working on, let's do a court hearing. The description can be entered in there. Billable time, of 6 minutes. Take action, add new event, goes on to the file, and Daniel, save it. You can get rid of it over here. Okay, clear all daily dockets. Once you're done, end of the day, and then go back into the matter, you would actually see there's a court hearing docket over here. Now, this is so helpful for you. To save you a lot of time for better file management, for better financial management, for better compliances. End of the day, it's about keeping yourself professionally compliant with Law Society by maintaining all of these standards as per their professional obligations, and you're able to do them all in one go. So there comes to the end of the webinar, and I'd like to enter the information here once again. Absolutely, yes. This session is being recorded and it's available on our YouTube platform as early as Monday. We generally try and upload it by, weekend, but this weekend being a long weekend, I'm hoping by Monday or Tuesday it should be available on our YouTube platform. and you can view anytime. It will be under the playlist webinars with today's date and information. And for the ones who are not able to receive webinar notifications, I request you to go on our webinar link and register for yourself. Then you will start receiving a reminder 15 minutes before the webinar. I'm also going to repost the attendance link with today's topic for all of you to make a note. Please copy it, and I'm sure you will be able to claim your credits from the respective law society. Once again, thank you everyone for showing up and supporting us with the webinars. Friday webinars are super helpful to a lot of you, I know. Any new topics, any suggestions that you all would like to send us, send it to us on info@superfluidsoftware.com or support@superfluidsoftware.com. I'm going to be hanging in tight here for a couple of more minutes to see if we all have any questions. And for any questions in relation to today's webinar, please email us on support@ulawpractice.com, and we'll be happy to assist you over a call. Thank you all very much, and have a wonderful long weekend. I'm just stopping the recording for others to be viewing it later on, but I'll still be here for another 5 minutes at least to see if you all have any questions. Thank you, and have a good day.